Hi, my name is Lawson. I played at the University of Tennessee for Coach Summitt from 1999 to 2003.
Kyra Elzy, and I played for Coach Summitt 1997 to 2001.
You're going to be the one that has to tell the story because I don't remember it too much, but when is the first time that we met?
Okay, we met when you came on your official visit. And literally we didn't think we were getting you.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you were a little shy, and the only person that you talked to was Tyler Summitt, but that was probably smart because that was Coach's son. And you are very about your business like you are now. And so the visit goes on and you leave and Coach DeMoss goes, "Do you think we're getting her?" And we were like, "No." She will not be coming to Tennessee. But you ended up coming. So that was the first time we got to meet.
I ended up coming. That was the first time. You know, I think it's always interesting, like one of the things about going to school together and playing together is that when you're around each other, you don't have to explain certain things about yourself. Because I think like people will say, "Oh, well, you don't really talk to anybody," or "You're very quiet," and you'll say, "She's always been that way."
She's always been that way.
Yeah.
People think just because when you got the job at Duke that you were shy and reserved, and I'm like, she's always been that way.
Yeah.
She talks to who she likes. I mean, and that's what it is.
Yeah, that's it. That's what it is.
But we did room together.
We did, yes.
So
on the road.
On the road.
Yeah.
Your freshman year. And I kept asking you, have you seen 16 Candles? And you were like, I watch ESPN.
I don't watch those channels.
I don't watch those channels.
Yeah.
I watch ESPN. And
but because you watch the Hallmark channel.
I watch Hallmark, you watch
and
ESPN.
I watch ESPN.
But that's okay, because we kept it on ESPN, and
Yeah.
so when you got the job at ESPN, I was like, that's fitting.
That's fitting.
That's you.
Yeah. What was it that made you decide to play for Coach Summitt when you were coming out of high school?
You know, well, at that time, Coach was, you know, obviously they were dominating in women's basketball, but she reminded me a lot of my mom. Very tough love, tough, family-oriented, and I knew she was going to push me beyond what I thought I was capable of, and I wanted to win. And so Coach Summitt and that staff was very appealing to me.
Yeah.
What about you?
I felt like she would be the one to challenge me the way I needed to be challenged.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that was something that I could verbalize at that age. It was more something that I felt. I felt that, one, she was so like blunt and honest, right? About the opportunity, how she ran her program, and then going on campus. When I came to visit you guys, the aforementioned visit, it was, I liked what I saw. I liked the competitiveness of the group. Obviously, there was a lot of talent in the gym, for sure, but I liked how she got after you. That appealed to me, even though it didn't always feel good when it was happening, but I liked that. And so I felt like she was the person that I needed in that time in my life for that 4 years to be able to, maximize my potential.
Absolutely. When you think about Coach Summitt, you know that you played for her how? Give me 3 things that you like. You know you played at Tennessee for Coach Summitt by these 3 things.
Well, I think it starts with the relationships.
Yeah.
We talk about sisterhood at Duke.
Yeah.
And, we certainly have a sisterhood with former players that played for her. And that is something that we all have that connection. We all still have relationships, like they're existing. There's stuff that we lean on each other still to this day. When we see one another, wherever it is, whatever walk of life we're in, if we see one another or we know that one of our sisters needs something, needs help, we're there whenever we need to be. So I think that I still have great relationships with, more than I can count on 2 hands with players that I played with there. And so I think that's the first thing. The second thing is a toughness. I mean, there's no doubt. It takes a tough player to play for Coach Summitt. And I think that in itself speaks for it. And the last thing I would say is like just a a competitive drive, a will to be better each day, to try and be better than what you were yesterday. I don't know that I was around anyone that had a higher will to compete than Coach Summitt.
Absolutely. I would agree. The sisterhood. We're not going to leave out the stare either.
Yes. That was, it was powerful.
Yes,
Very
no
powerful.
words needed. You knew exactly what she wanted, what she was going to demand from you with the stare, the look. And she never blinked. It was like a see-through you stare. But, the sisterhood was very powerful. I remember one of Coach Summitt's last years on the road. She took us all out to eat. We were recruiting, and she paid for everyone, which she was always going to do. And I drove her back to the hotel, and I was like, Coach, we're all grown with jobs now. You don't have to pay for us. And she whipped her head around, and she goes, you always pay your blessings forward. And that was so Coach Summitt. And she was like, long after I'm gone, you all continuing the sisterhood will be the legacy.
Yeah.
That will be how you all pay me.
Yeah.
And that just spoke volumes to me because that's Coach in a nutshell.
Yeah.
It was always bigger than basketball.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's I think no matter where I've gone, and especially now in this position where we're coaching, we're on the other side of where we were when we played for her, right? Yeah. We're coaching young women, and most of what we do foundationally at Duke is from Coach Summitt. I say this a lot, like who I am as a person, most of that foundationally is from my parents. How I was raised, but who I am as a basketball coach, most of that is from Coach Summitt and how we structure our program, how we run our program, what's important to us, what we value, at Duke. The core stuff is all from when we were at Tennessee. And it's not something that I've had to write down per se, or something I've had to work towards. It's something I am, and so that's, I don't know, that's a powerful legacy as well, Absolutely. Is that the traits and the characteristics of what wins and what's important still carry on at Duke here.
Yeah. And you mentioned toughness, and I don't think it's just toughness on the basketball court. Obviously, you have to have that to play for her. But now that I'm older and, life happens, it's the toughness to be resilient no matter what life throws at you. So I think she prepared us for life after basketball. Life was going to happen. How resilient are we going to be? And then us taking care of each other. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. What do you have a good Coach Summitt story in terms of, it can be humorous, it can be a time you're struggling, but something that stands out about your time with her?
I mean, I have so many memories. She was bigger than life, but for us, she was just our coach, And I think when I think about it, I wish I would cherish more of the time that we had with her now that she's gone. I think my freshman year, I cried enough tears to fill up the Tennessee River, I can assure you.
You tried to go home, didn't you?
Well, I did go home. I just didn't get to stay, but I did go home. And I was like, this woman is out of her mind. And so I sold all my stuff. I packed up my little Honda Prelude. I went to see Coach DeMoss, and I was like, thank you all so much for the opportunity, but I cannot stay here. And so Coach DeMoss was like, okay. And so by the time I got home, I was going to go to my grandma's house. I had it planned out because I had a 4-hour drive from Knoxville to Kentucky. So I had it planned out. I was like, I'm just going to lay in the yard at my grandma's house and I'm just going to cry. And she's like, oh, baby, just stay home. So I didn't know that Coach Summitt had already called my mom. So when I pulled up, I was unpacking my Honda Prelude. My mom was like, how long are you staying for Christmas break? I was like, well, I'm not going back to Tennessee. And she was like, oh, you're not? She was like, well, Coach Summitt called me. And she goes, you can just spend the day with me. And my mom was a lieutenant at the prison. And she goes, you can come shadow me for the day. You can't stay here, but if you're not going back to Knoxville, get used to coming to the prison. So I went to shadow her. They closed the prison doors. I was with her for about 6 hours. And I was like, Coach Summitt doesn't sound so bad. But, that was a big turning point for me. She told me for a whole year that she was a two-guard away from a national championship. And she had wrote me this long letter telling me how I was underachieving, I wasn't doing the things that she needed, and that when we won a national championship, I could give it back to her. And so after we won, she gave me the biggest hug, but on the plane, I gave her the note back. And so she was no longer a two-guard away from a national championship, but that's the gift that she had. She could see greatness in you before you could see it in yourself. And for that, I'm forever thankful for her.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different stories that come to mind for me, but, one of the things that I was really challenged in was communication off the court. On the court, I think I was fine
Yeah.
in terms of calling plays and knowing what we're supposed to be doing. And, she used to have us do those one-on-one meetings with her.
Yes.
And, freshman year, similar to your story, was a challenging year for me, trying to, adjust from high school to college, also trying to play the point guard position, and on a top team, right? And I remember her scheduling, Miss Katie calling and scheduling the one-on-one meetings.
Yes.
And I did not want to go in the meetings and talk. I did not have anything to say. And so I was very nervous to go in there and talk. So what I did when Miss Katie called me and asked me for my availability, I scheduled my one-on-one meeting right before class with my meeting with Coach Summitt right before class, because I knew the one thing that you could leave her grasp for was class. She did not want you to be late for class. She wanted us to sit in the first 3 rows.
Absolutely.
We had to go to every class. So I knew that. And as so often happened when she was meeting with players, it went long. So it was backed up. And I got in there like 10 minutes before I had to leave for my class. But she didn't know I had class. So I sat there for 10 minutes and barely said a word. And then my watch went off and I was like, I have to go to class, bye. So I left. So the next time we had meetings, Miss Katie called me and said, we need to schedule your meeting for an hour because Coach Summitt wants to make sure that she has enough time with you before going to class. She was going to force her way into getting what she wanted.
She was going to get what she wanted.
Yes, yes.
That was going to happen.
Very much so, very much so. Now you also had the opportunity to coach with her.
Yes.
Yeah. What was there? I mean, what was the difference? I never coached with her. I only saw her as like the coach, as player coach. So what was that like?
For me, it was an amazing experience. It gave me a second chance with her. But at that time, she was battling with early onset dementia. But she was still coach. And, she would be sitting on the sideline and she would, be smiling. And then she'd be like, you didn't come off the ball screen properly. And you could still see it. It would come out, even though she was not coaching at that time. But she was going to rehab, and they were telling her she was working on her brain solving problems, and she looked at me and winked and she goes, I forgot how to do it. And so she still had the witty sense of humor, but just to see her go back and everybody embrace her, even though she was sick, it was hard to watch during that time, but still powerful to have her around.
Yeah, I got a chance to spend some time with her. So it was post-college playing career for me. At the time, I was playing in the WNBA, and I was working at ESPN, working on television. But I had an injury, not a long-term one, but just some nicks. And I went back to Knoxville to rehab for a couple months. So I got an apartment right by her house. And I remember going down the first night I was there to have dinner, because she loved, as you know, hosting people and cooking and things like that. And then the next day comes around and I don't go down because, I'm thinking like, I'm not gonna go down to someone's house every night. They have things that they're doing, and, if I get invited over, I'll go. And so the next thing, the phone rings. Well, Lawson, where are you? And I'm like, at home.
Yeah.
Well, come on down. Aren't you coming? Are you coming? And it's just, she wanted you there,
Yeah.
right? She wanted people there. She wanted to be around, wanted to spend time with her former players. So I ended up probably eating there like 4 or 5 nights a week,
Yeah.
you know, and it was all because she just would call and say, hey, I'm fixing this tonight. Why don't you come on down? So that was a special time for me because, you know, there is this relationship that is so special. I think one of the things that makes what we do amazing, and one of the things that drew me to becoming a coach was the different coaches that impacted me. And they had such an impact on my life that it made me want to have that opportunity to have that impact on other young people. And with Coach Summitt, when you're coaching players, you have a great relationship, but it changes when you graduate, and it can change in a really like beautiful, meaningful way. You're less there day to day, but you can just get to know each other more on a personal level.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm so grateful for. That time I spent before she was diagnosed, getting to know her a little bit more as a person, her getting to know me as I'm still one of her players.
Yeah.
You know, she would still
Yeah.
call you, or if she's watching you in the WNBA and say like, why aren't you playing defense or what? But to be able to spend time with her that way outside of basketball is very memorable. I think for both of us, Week Back Pat Week holds special significance because it's honoring our late coach, and one of her final missions was to make an impact in the fight against Alzheimer's and early onset dementia. And I thought was so courageous in her battle with it, and you know, one of the most important figures in really American sports history when you think about it, with Coach Summitt and all of the accomplishments that she had. And now for us to be able to honor not just any coach, but our coach, and keep her memory alive, and fight something for her, I think is particularly meaningful.
Absolutely. Well, you know, she spent her whole life fighting for women's basketball to grow it, not only at Tennessee, but, you know, across the wide spectrum of people. And she gave so much to basketball. And for us to be able to honor her as our coach, but also to see other people participating. And I know she wants to find a cure. She would want that. And for us to be a small part in helping do that, we'll always fight for her. She always fought for us.
Yeah, I mean, there's a short answer to what Coach would feel about, you know, the rise of women's basketball, women's sports in general. I think she'd say about dang time is, I think, what she would say. She had a strong belief in the power of women, the power of women's sports, and believed in it and worked, spent so much time, not just to grow the Tennessee program, but to grow the sport in general. There's never been a figure like her in women's basketball, and there never will be. She was unique in that she focused on what was good for everybody. And I think nowadays that's rare. It's rare to find someone that has a lot of power, someone that has a lot of influence, but still maintains the care for others and maintains the empathy and maintains just a true desire for other people to succeed as well. And that's not as common anymore.
And I think that's what makes her unique. And for the We Back Pat, you know, all the money raised goes to the Pat Summitt Foundation. And, you know, Alzheimer's is a terrible disease. And if we can keep putting money into research, and we have to find a cure. And like her slogan, together we will win. And so anybody out there, if you want to donate to the We Back Pat Foundation, we encourage that, and we just got to keep fighting for our coach.